Depending who you ask, you get different answers on the question of what is the best bedding to foal your mare on. I would like to give you some information so that you can make the best decision for you, because the reality is there is no best bedding, but there is a proven alternative that is best for both mares and foals. Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Veronique. I've been breeding horses for 20 years, and I like to share what I've learned and researched over the years. I think we can agree that we always try to set things up the best way possible for our horses, and when that horse is a brand new foal, we look for what is best and safest. The main criteria for good beddings are cleanliness, absorbency, stability, because this is where the foal will learn to stand on its legs on whatever bedding we've chosen, and availability. There's no point of dreaming of the best bedding possible if it's just not available. The most accessible bedding by far is wood shavings, but it has a bad reputation, and I'm not sure if it's due in part because it's a product of an industrial process and therefore seen as less natural. Even having said that, there are some real issues and concerns with wood shavings that are not the result of pure nostalgia, let's say. Some claim they can be toxic. Let's unpack and look into that. Shavings of some hardwoods can be toxic, notably and almost exclusively the black walnut, because it has juglone, which is toxic to plants, toxic to animals, and it leads to laminitis in horses. Black walnut has a limited geographic range, so if you live in those areas, you need to make sure that it's not in your shavings, for sure. That being said, it's also a pretty well-known fact, so not likely to be included in shavings meant for animals. But definitely do check if you live in that area, and if there's any doubt, absolutely abstain from using those shavings. Oak shavings, however, are different. They don't have a toxin in it, but they can harbor Klebsiella. It's a type of bacteria, and we all agree, if you can identify a specific bacteria, probably not good to have close to a naive or a fragile immune system. Where I live, anyway, and in a great part of North America, the most common source of shaving are softwood. Pine wood shaving is probably the most sold product out there. So, what's wrong with pine shaving? Well, some will say that they're dusty. So that's the problem that they have with the shavings, is that it can be dusty. And we understand that having small particles floating in the air and getting in their nose and irritating their eyes, probably not the best. Okay, fair enough. A lot of commercially sold shavings, wood shaving, are actually clean. It says so right on the bag. Clean, dust-free. Fine, so the dust has been removed. Okay, so clean pine shaving are good, right? Well, that brings us to another issue. It sticks to things, especially wet things. And some say that if the foal is covered in shaving and the mare starts to lick it, they will ingest some of it. Personally, I've seen mares lick foals born in shaving, and first of all, they were not covered in shaving, and second of all, the mare is perfectly able to spit it out. And let's not forget that horses eat wood, right? So I don't think that's the issue here. There is an issue, however. It's when the mare is pushing out the foal. Whenever she's pushing out the foal and the feet start to come out, if at that moment she takes a break, which she often does, or she gets up because maybe she just needs to reposition the foal, and then the foal kind of slip backs. If there's some shaving stuck to these feet and they're dragged back into the birth canal, it can both irritate and contaminate. But let's face it, it's a pretty small chance, and it's not very common. In fact, very large foaling farms that foal out for a living have foaled hundreds of foals, and they foal on shavings. There is definitely some advantages to foaling on shavings to outweigh that small negative possibility. It's very absorbent. So it's really useful for that. And it's also really easy to see when it's dirty, so you can go in and clean it. And speaking of cleaning, it's easy to clean. It also provides a really good base for the baby to get up on. Now, not a sprinkling of it, but if you have a good base of shaving, it'll compact and it'll become a good and stable medium for the foals to struggle and get up on its feet. So if you're going to attend to foaling and you're going to keep that stall clean, and you're going to use dust-free pine shaving as your main bedding, there is no issue. So let's move on to straw. Straw has some romantic appeal, I think. It's the way that it was used in the past. We didn't have shavings back then. And there's something to be said again. I think the wood shaving coming from some industrial process, it's just don't feel as good. But straw's natural. But the thing is that straw is a byproduct of cultivating cereal. And because it's a byproduct, it's not the main goal of the producer to make the best straw possible. So the quality will vary quite a bit. They will have baled the straw. It might not have been completely clean, or it might have a little bit of dew on it. They don't care. It's just bedding, right? Well, the problem is if it's baled, a little bit wet, and of course, they often put a lot of pressure, and these straw bales are really compact, you're going to get some mold developing in there. If it's stored outside, it's going to get rained on. Again, you're going to get some mold. So, it's not always all that it's cracked up to be. And then let's talk about the type of straw. So you can have machines that, like big combines, what they will chop up that straw into smaller bits. That is what is collected and baled. Now, those shorter pieces of straw are they're softer. And they're softer, they compact more, so they absorb a little bit, but absorption is really not the strength of straw. And they are generally a little bit easier to handle. It's easier to clean through them. They're just shorter little bits, right? So that's a good thing, but it's not as fluffy. It's not what you picture in your mind when you think of a really thick, fluffy bed. No, what you're looking at there is long stem straw. It's very fluffy. It's not absorbent. It's good for drainage because everything goes right through and lands on the bottom, whatever you have at the bottom. It is warmer because it traps a lot of air, so that is good. Definitely, if you want to keep your stock warm, definitely long stem straw is great. It can hide manure because literally it gets buried in it and you don't even know how dirty the stall is until it gets to a point where, okay, obviously there's a lot of manure there. And it's hard to clean. Honestly, it's hard to pick through. Also, depending on the cereal stock it comes from, either oat or barley or hemp, some straw will be more palatable, meaning nice to eat for some horses, particularly oat straw. Now, eating a little bit of straw is not an issue. It's if they eat a lot of it or they don't drink enough water, because their gut is not really designed to process straw. They're processing grass most of the time, so it can lead to some impaction. Generally speaking, between hay and straw, hay is preferred, right? Makes sense. So if you keep good hay in front of your mare, she will eat the hay over the straw. So it shouldn't be a big issue. One thing, however, is that when nice fluffy straw is used, it has been shown that horses will lay down more. That means that it will encourage your mare to lie down more, which is a good thing. It's the optimal position for pushing out that foal and then resting afterward. Of course, the foal will also appreciate it when it's time to lie down. But like I say, it is slippery, it is hard to clean, the quality can be quite variable, it can be dusty and moldy in part, and it's kind of hard to get a hold of it. It's a good choice, but it's not the be-all and end-all. What about sand, compacted sand? It drains well. It's excellent footing for the foal trying to get up. It's almost impossible to keep clean. It's abrasive and dirty, back to the birth canal issue. Now, lots of foal are born on it, don't get me wrong. Being in paddocks or in some, really grazed down pasture, foals will be born on sand, basically. It's not ideal. If you're asking a question about what's the best footing if you're going to plant things, then obviously packed sand in a dirt paddock is not ideal. To be clear, I had a foal born, obviously didn't know when the mare had been bred, born in a manure pile because mares, and another one was born in a nice thick straw stall at the vet. I'll give you a guess which one got an infected umbilicus that needed surgery. Yeah, it was not the one burned on a manure pile. So, just to say, you control so much, but you can only go so far. Now, by far the best footing for a foal to be born on is grass. Grass is clean, especially after a sunny day. Grass drains really well. It's great footing for the baby and the mare. It's not dusty. But of course, foaling a mare out on grass is harder. It's hard to keep track of the mare. Where is she? There's no good source of light and she's in a pasture. There's no camera coverage. There might be bugs at night. Might be rainy or windy. These are people problem, not horse problem. So if you can make a small enclosure with panels on a clean patch of pasture or your lawn and install your infrared camera, it's still better than any kind of stall, even if it rains. Because no one says that you can't bring your mare and foal back inside once the foal is up and walking, and then you can bed with whatever you want. For years, I did not have a foaling stall. I foaled my mares out in pens on grass. Short of the toxic or moldy aspect of bedding that we covered, far more important than stressing over what kind to use is to keep whatever footing you choose clean. Attend the bird, treat the umbilicus, and as soon as you can, ensure that the foal gets a good dose of colostrum. Those are way more important than any of the decision you might make on what footings and bedding you might put in your stall. I hope that was useful. If you find that kind of practical and scientific information useful, well, you're in the right channel, because that's pretty much what I talk about.